Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Chatting Chelsea, the Chelsea podcast, where we, unsurprisingly, chat about Chelsea. You are joined by myself, Oz from Oz Talks Chelsea, and Tom from TBL. Tom, how are you doing?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm very excited. Now, guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, please drop a like and please subscribe. It'd be massively appreciated. And if you're watching or listening on audio platforms like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please drop us 5 stars. Support the podcast. It means a lot. We're so excited for this. It's been massively in the works for a long time, and we're just so excited. Now, we are coming to you with the first episode on an interesting period of Chelsea's time. We've obviously just lost 1-0 to Man United. So we've got a lot to go through today. Where are Chelsea going to finish in the Champions League spots? Will we get Champions League? That's a big question. Liam Rosenior, Neto, Garnacho's performance. We need to talk about that. Our centre-backs, the sporting directors, the protests. So much to go through today. So we hope you do enjoy. But I think kind of without further ado, we should crack into it, don't you think?
Yeah, for sure. The first thing we need to do is do a little bit of housekeeping before we talk about Chelsea. I think the announcement that we had, we were sort of really happy with the response. We were really happy that all of you were so excited. A lot of people happy that it was me and Oz teaming up. I have to thank Oz for inviting me on board. I'm very humbled. I only started doing this content stuff a year ago. And we're looking forward to seeing how it goes over the next sort of few months, because we're coming towards the end of the season, but I'm sure, as there always is with Chelsea, there'll be a lot to talk about in the summer. But for right now, there's still football going on, and it's not a really good time. So, yeah.
Absolutely not. But if it was going very good at Chelsea, then there almost wouldn't be as much to talk about. Whereas we can talk about how we're going to try and help this club fix solutions for the club and everything going forward. So obviously, on Saturday evening, Chelsea played Man United, a big game. Chelsea needed the win for to kind of like help us in our run for Champions League. Obviously, came into the game. Man United had only one centre-back, which was Heaven, quite an inexperienced centre-back in the back line. Mazraoui was there, so you thought, hey, we're going to do well here and at least get a couple of goals. João Pedro hopefully was going to get a goal or two against that kind of weakened defence. And then lineup comes out. It's Liam Delap up front. João Pedro is injured. I believe he's going to be available for Brighton. But kind of unfortunate. And I think a really good point to start is that attacking line that we saw, because it was obviously Liam Delap, it was obviously Pedro Neto, and then for the majority of the game it was Garnacho, because Estelle came off. What are we thinking about that front three? Because it's a massive talking point for me, for sure.
Yeah, I think if you ask most Chelsea fans what their least favourite front three would be, it'd probably be those. Not a lot of fans are a fan of Garnacho. Neto was a bit Marmite sort of a year ago. I think a lot of people are not as a fan of him now, and Delap has not really impressed for Chelsea this season at all, coming in sort of for £30 million from Ipswich last summer. And the problem for Liam Rosenior is that he's been the biggest talk after that game, but he couldn't really do anything else with that front line except throw Mark Guiu on or bring on a different midfielder and put Palmer on the right. Who knows? Because Esteval's not around, Gittins isn't around, João Pedro was injured. There's nothing he could have really done, and he was kind of stuck with that front three. And when you're playing against a Man United team that seemed to be happy to absorb a bunch of pressure and sit in their own box, you don't really know where those chances are going to come. And understandably, the only place where they really would come is Neto putting in one of those back post crosses with his left foot. Delap or someone gets on the end of it. Delap hit the crossbar of the post once. I think Fofana then hit the crossbar of the post from the same sort of cross once as well. Those were the only real chances that Chelsea made, despite having, 60% of the ball in the second half. So,
if we're just looking at the stats, we've got 6% possession overall, 1.57 expected goals compared to their 0.29, 21 shots, 3 on target. Obviously, out of the shots, 3 of them hit the woodwork, which don't count as on target shots. So pretty much like 6 shots on target if you count the kind of woodwork. So many accurate passes compared to them. Just all the 7 corners, everything going in our way. Genuinely, just like absolutely dominated the game on the surface. And so many Man United fans have been saying to me like, "Oh, we got away with one. We got a bit lucky." Their goals, their only shot on target. A really nice take and finish by Mateus Cunha. The thing that I'm thinking about Liam Rosenior is that the issue, he as you say, he coached a good performance, not a good performance necessarily, but a performance that should have got the win against that Man United team in my eyes. The issue for me is when you go 1-0 down currently at Chelsea, there is a feeling that I get, especially sat in the stadium, where you look at the players and you go, are they really gagging to win this game? Is it? And although the stats suggest that they were trying to score, there was something where I'm like, perhaps you're not motivating the players necessarily enough. But then again, you look at the front line, and that's where the issue lies for me. And I really do want to talk about Neto and Garnacho personally, because I think criticism in football has to be contextualized in the sense that you need to take in someone's age, someone's experience, and someone's price tag as well. I know players don't choose the price tag. I have been very, very critical of Pedro Neto, sometimes more so than Garnacho. Does that mean that I think Pedro Neto is worse than Garnacho? Absolutely not, but I expect different things. I expect Pedro Neto in this kind of game to take the game by the scruff of its neck and move it forward and be the 26-year-old that he is, which is probably the oldest Chelsea player on the pitch and probably the 3rd or 4th oldest player in the squad, and take us forward and like do something. And Garnacho came on and gave a poor performance, but I wasn't expecting a crazy amount more from him. I expect moments from Garnacho. Whereas like the issue with Pedro Neto is he takes the ball and 9 times out of 10, he will go across or backwards. And that's my issue with him. Whereas Garnacho is getting booed and getting jeered by the Chelsea fans because he's trying to move the ball forward, failing, which is not good enough. But he's trying things. So it's just the balance between the two of a 26-year-old that's £60 million, kind of more Premier League experience, versus Garnacho, £40 million, 21 years old, room for improvement. I think they're both an issue at Chelsea, but the Neto one really infuriates me.
Yeah. Anyone who's watched me or hasn't watched me, I skew a little bit more positive about Garnacho, and I still do a little bit this season. I think he's quite overhated as a player, but in this game, it was probably his worst performance for Chelsea. I think he played the occasion, not the game. I think as soon as he came on, you saw that he went to warm up when Esteval went down, and you can imagine what the United fans were saying to him. And he's not really liked up north at all. The thing with Garnacho is that he's become the sort of starting left winger for Chelsea, especially when Maresca was here, actually. He was starting a lot. Maresca preferred him over someone like Jamie Gittins. The problem with that is that he is not a good 1v1 guy. And we all knew this coming in. Everyone knew that his take on success rate wasn't good, and he wasn't good at collecting the ball to his feet and taking on a fullback. That's not what his game is. His game is about stretching defences, running in behind, running to the back post, all of his off-ball movement. And when you talk about football online, it gets quite lost about how important off-ball movement is in comparison to sort of taking on your man. Because taking on your man is something you want to see your winger doing. It's entertaining and beating their defenders and stuff like that. Whereas running to the back post in the way Garnacho does and popping up at the back post isn't glamorous or anything. But the problem is that Chelsea have sort of platformed him to be in that position where he's got to take on his man, and he isn't good at doing that. The only time he's good at really doing that sometimes is when he'll go to the bar line and cut the ball back. So the thing with Garnacho is, he needed to be in and out of the team this season, but because they signed Jamie Gittins, who is now injured, but when he was here, was very clearly not really ready for that step up yet, as is a theme with a lot of players Chelsea sign. A lot of onus has been put on Garnacho this season on that left-hand side. Now, as I say this, he's still not played anywhere near the amount of minutes that Pedro Neto has. The problem with Pedro Neto is that when you look at the amount of goals and assists he has this season, it's pretty decent. But when you look at the amount of minutes he plays for a winger in this league, it's ridiculous. So there's only 3 wingers in the league that have played more than him. I think that's Bowen, Semenyo, and someone else. And when you go to sort of his per 90s and stuff like that, he is below all of his peers. He's below Garnacho, he's below Estevao, he's below João Pedro in the output that he's getting. And the problem with Pedro Neto is, as you say, when you're buying someone who's now in their 7th season in the Premier League, they need to be providing more than what he's providing. He's very high usage, gets a lot of touches of the ball for a winger, and he doesn't do a lot with it despite having that much of the ball. Because if you get, like, I remember, I think it was the first half of the Man City game. We were giving the ball to Neto a lot in the first half of that game, and Estevao was not getting it at all. And I'm thinking, if Estevao is getting the touches that Pedro Neto is getting, what is he doing with that? So that's the issue with both of those wingers, and I wouldn't be surprised if neither of them at Chelsea next season. I think there's a report this morning from Alex Crook that we're willing to sell Garnacho. Yeah, I'm a bit more positive on Garnacho than most people, but I understand the frustrations. But with Neto, I fully agree.
Yeah, the thing with me for Neto, that honestly, the thing that frustrates me the most is you sometimes see him go for it. And then I'm literally like, if I were you, if I had your speed and if I had your kind of like tenacity that you sometimes show, I would do that every time. Like, was it against Napoli, one of the goals where he like just drilled it down the left-hand side, brought across, I think it was for João Pedro's goal. You see occasionally, like once a half or maybe once a game, he will do something where he'll just take on the man, blitz him. He's rapid. And I'm like, that's so good. But you've done that once in 100 touches of the game, and you've had the ball so many times, and you're coming up against, a lot of the time it'll be a left back that's like, I can't think of an example of a left back that's like just not as good as he is a wing when he's on his best. But I'm just like, you've got him on toast. Like, apart from, I don't know, Calafiori or someone like that, or apart from O'Reilly or maybe Lewis Hall, any other left back in the league, he can just go for it. And if he doesn't go for it, you'll get a corner, you'll get a throw in, or if you're really unlucky, you'll turn over possession. But A, you're rapid enough and you've got the work rate to get back and get that. Or second of all, you've got Caicedo there, you've got Reece James or Malagusa there. You'll be fine if you lose the ball. And that's the thing for me. And that is why last season I got absolutely flamed on so many social medias for preferring Noni Madueke to Pedro Neto. And that wasn't necessarily because I thought Madueke was a better player, but I'm just such a fan of wingers that take risks. And I'd much rather you lose possession 9 times and then do something good on that 10th time than have 10 times where you're like, oh, I'm just going to keep possession and keep it safe. And that's the reason why Pedro Neto isn't droppable by any of these managers and why they play, is because he's the safest option. And it's an issue we have at the moment, because I'd much rather Neto be really, really, really obviously bad and then be droppable. But the issue is he isn't really droppable to the majority of managers, because he's the oldest, the most experienced kind of winger that we have at the club. And the other than Garnacho and Gittins are not really performing at the level. So yeah, it's really tough. And I think it does make it tough for the manager. And I think it's a good segue onto Rosenior. A lot of people I'm seeing it's Rosenior out, and the concept of Rosenior out I don't disagree with, because he's not performed well enough. 4 losses in the Premier League without scoring a goal is mental. As a Chelsea fan, no matter what kind of period is, that's like that you're looking worse at kind of Graham Potter kind of level. But if you are Rosenior out, I have to ask you the question: will this ownership or the sporting directors replace him with a manager that will do any better than him? And I think the answer is no. For me, if they were going to sack him and they were going to bring in, who's an example of an elite manager? Let's just say Enrique as an example. Then I'd be like, absolutely. If you're sacking someone and bringing an improvement, obviously. But I can't help but feel they'd sack Rosenior and get Gary O'Neill, or they sack Rosenior and get I don't know who, like maybe like a McKenna or like a. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no
Yeah.
one that's going to move the needle. And Rosenior is out of his depth, and I genuinely actually feel so repeatedly sorry for him, and I think he's going through such a hard time. But that's the issue I'm having. I don't know what your thoughts on kind of that Rosenior situation are.
Yeah, I think I said this after the game on Twitter. I think he's after Maresca left, Chelsea needed a little bit of stability because there was going to be volatility there, because it was very clear from what people like Cucurella and Enzo have said in recent weeks that they were quite fond and surprised that he left. But from also what we've heard, the Maresca situation was very untenable between his relationship with the club. I think Rosenior has come in and attempted to stamp his authority quite aggressively. I think he's made some big calls, for example, dropping Sanchez against PSG, that have backfired. And that can not only sort of invite a whole load of criticism, those individual decisions, but it also can raise question marks with your players. I'm sure that there are a lot of players before that game against PSG where they were like, why is this happening? What is he doing? Like, I know Jorgensen is better with his feet. I don't even think Jorgensen is that good with his feet. But like, Sanchez has been one of our best players. Up until Rosenior was hired, he was probably top 2 players of the season for me, alongside probably a Caicedo or an Enzo. I don't know. So the thing with him is he hasn't helped himself in a lot of regards, I don't think. But I do feel for him, because you can't not take the job when you're given it. But also the manner in which we've lost a lot of these games in this run of 7 games, where our only win was against Port Vale, our only goals were against Port Vale. A lot of the circumstances feel really harsh for him. That PSG 8-2 on aggregate is harsh on him. Mm-hmm. It wasn't an 8-2 tie, even though I don't think we deserve to win it. When you look at our draws to Leeds and Burnley, the defence threw those away. Yeah. We played well in those games. The Villa game was a really good game, really good performance. Newcastle, Fofana lets Gordon run ahead of him ridiculously for their goal, and we don't break them down after that. PSG, we were playing well for 70 minutes, and then we concede 3 goals from 3 straight shots. Probably 1 or 2 of them Jorgensen should be saving. Everton away, we concede, and then Sanchez throws the ball in his net. Njai scores a banger, probably his best goal he'll score this season. It feels like, and I said this after the game, it feels like, yes, he's making mistakes, but even the stuff that he's doing well isn't working out for him because it's just not going his way. And he gets to that point where, like, I think like Liverpool have been in the same situation in recent weeks, where they feel like it's probably not Arne Slot's fault where they are. It's probably not fully Rosenior's fault where we are, but you might just have to move him on, just do something and change something. But the problem I have, and where I land on it and where I've landed on it the whole time, is that if the manager situation this season doesn't work, there has to also be other heads that roll at the football club. Because what's happened this season is a regression in the project, a regression in how Chelsea have progressed from where they were finished 12th 3 years ago to where they were last season. And it's very clear that if the manager's moving on and it's not working, that it's not just the coach's fault, because you've gone through so many managers in that time. But
absolutely, yeah. I think it's one of those ones that if you keep changing something, the one thing that they keep changing is the coach, but the same thing's consistently happening. Maybe the coach isn't the problem. I think
you're going insane.
Yeah. That is the definition of it.
The definition of it.
Yeah, trying the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, and it's just like. And the only way to get out of that spiral, I think, in one way you could look at it and be like, I'm just using Enrique as an example of a really good manager, because the kind of the amount of elite managers in world football right now is actually quite low, but we'll just use him for example. In one part of my head, I go, bring him in, bring someone like that in. They won't do it, but bring someone like that in and he'll change things. But then the other way I look at it is like, would he? Is the club actually set up right now where not even the best of the best can do necessarily a good job. I think he'd come in and maybe win some more games, but I sometimes worry that they can't, like, there's a ceiling to a manager at Chelsea right now under the exact thing that the club are doing, because there are, no matter how, for example, this Man United game is perfect. If a manager comes in and coaches 21 shots with 60% possession, complete domination in kind of every field of the game, but you don't have
The
the
only
kind of,
goal we conceded in the game, the goal we conceded in the game was Man United's only shot in the penalty box the whole game.
yeah, exactly. And
And the only other 3 shots they had were all from 25 plus yards.
yeah, I mean, we had 13 block shots. We had 3 hit the woodwork, 11 shots inside the box, which is just like, that's mental. Yeah, and Manu only had 1 shot inside the box, 3 shots outside the box, which was probably just like Bruno having a Hail Mary or something. Yeah, it's one of those things that, like, if Enrique came and coached that game, I think a lot of people would go, oh, I mean, he managed a good game, but Garnacho, Delap, and everyone let him down. I didn't, like, the worst part is, and I know people think I'm still kind of going on about it, like, I don't think Delap was awful. I think it's a kind of, I think it's a, he wasn't good, but it wasn't a case of, like, he was kind of messing
He was
things up.
more what you thought he would be when he came in, that he would be in the box.
Yeah,
Sort of taking on defenders, winning headers, being a box striker, because he's doesn't, like, we know he can't contribute, like, to general play and build up in the way that João Pedro can, or Jackson could. So that's what you wanted him to do, and that's what he was.
yeah.
And again, I, to be honest, this result in isolation, this performance in isolation, I think is more of an indictment on the club, the squad building, the fact that the front 4 cost 200 million, but we all knew that it wasn't good.
Yeah.
Like, obviously outside of Palmer, but Palmer's not playing well, and he's dealing with an injury that he can only just play through.
Yeah.
So
I think that has to be this kind of game should hopefully be another of multiple messages to the owners and the sporting directors about how this game is 3 points and Chelsea are nearer to Champions League if the personnel are better. And it's not because they all turn around and say João Pedro and Esteban are brilliant signings, which they absolutely are. But they can't play 38 game season in the Premier League. The backup to that has to be better, because when João Pedro is out of that starting 11, everyone goes from, oh, we can get a couple of points from United today, to, I don't know what's going to happen here. And if one player is in that situation, if the starting 11 comes up and João Pedro isn't on it, or Caicedo isn't on it, or I think those 2 are kind of the main ones for me, really. You're literally like, I don't know if we can win today. And that shouldn't be the case. The drop down is so aggressive. And I know a lot of other teams in the league have it. Like, if Arsenal's lineup comes up and Rice isn't on there, and probably Gabriel or Saliba isn't on there, there is maybe a worry. But what Arsenal have done is they have got the depth better for that centre-back department, and they are risking it a bit with Declan Rice, but he seems to just be absolutely invincible. Yeah, that's the thing. It's the step below that's really worrying me, and I think it's the talent ID from the sporting directors. And one thing I wanted to say about kind of Garnacho and Liam Delap is they are good signings if they are the second, if they're the first reserve. They're really good signings. If you signed,
I think with Delap, I think he is the second reserve. I think Garnacho, that's my whole thing with the Garnacho.
Yeah.
When I said I liked the signing, I was like, oh, he's going to come in and be different option on the left.
Yeah.
But like Delap,
But my issue with Delap, I understand what you're saying, and I agree, because he should in theory be perfect for that. But I don't sometimes think he's used correctly. I think he should be used as the kind of sub more, and in the right moments in right games. Whereas, like, sometimes he's just like, sometimes I feel like he's treated as in, like, he's just another João Pedro. And it's like, his skill set is so different that you have to tailor it. Like, him coming on for João Pedro at the end of games, whether it's trying to see finish a game off, or I don't think you put him on to try and get a winner, but he should be used really specifically, maybe more as a third striker, Liam Delap. And I know that's kind of mental to spend 30 million on a third striker, but that kind of like maybe Delap should be the Mark U, and then obviously we should have like a Jackson or someone else as the second striker. But yeah, I do think it's the strand below the main guys that I'm starting to get a bit worried about, and that's what I think they need to do in the summer. I think something similar to that about kind of the people that they've bought in and the people they've bought as the centre back situation. I think Wesley Fofana didn't actually have a bad game. Obviously, they scored when he went off. I think he'd hurt his ribs or something. Went off. They scored because he wasn't kind of in the box defending. But in general, there's a clip where he's come off and he's gone straight down the tunnel. He's like thrown his hand up at Rosenior, ignoring all the kind of staff there. And it's a sign for me where I'm kind of getting a bit sick of attitudes like that, especially again. I know Wesley Fofana hasn't played a lot of games, but he's still an experienced player and he's old in kind of relation to the Chelsea squad. I'm like, I expect so much more from you. You're one of the you're probably, I'd say, third highest paid at the club, maybe second. 70-80 million pounds. I know he didn't choose that price, but I'm just expecting a lot more. And then you look at someone like Sarr, don't you?
Yes. I mean, with Fofana, firstly, we don't. The only things we have to go off in terms of what his attitude is the driving bans, which has become a bit of a meme. The amount of he's got 50+ points on his license or something, which
is insane, by the way.
Yeah, I think to be honest, my assessment of him is that it gets to this point in the season, he starts to feel like he might leave, and then he just checks out.
Yeah.
Like, when we could see that Everton's first goal when they beat us 3-0, like, he's not tracking, like, same Newcastle's goal, he's just not tracking runners. He feels pretty unserious right now. But when you see that going on, and you see Josh on the bench, and you see what's happened with Mamadou Sarr, who was a loanee at Strasbourg, because we bought him for permanently, I think, last summer. He was playing 90 minutes every week for Strasbourg. He was one of their leaders. He captained the side once or twice in the absence of Omega and stuff. And then he gets recalled in January because Chelsea announced to the world via Matt Law that they were going to sign a centre-back. We then don't sign Jeremy Jacquet. He goes to Liverpool. Well, he's going to Liverpool in the summer on a pre-agreement. And then instead, we just recall Mamadou Sarr from his loan at Strasbourg. And since he's been recalled, which was, I think, February 1st or start of February, he has played 90 minutes in the league, and it's mid-April. He would have played, and I went back and looked at Strasbourg, he would have played like 1,000+ minutes at Strasbourg, and he'd be in a European semi-final right now. The kid's 20.
Yeah.
And we've just ruined or we've just erased 6 months of the development of him as a player at 20 years old. Some of the most important age, especially at centre back, because at centre back it takes a little bit longer to develop.
And also off the back directly of winning, in inverted commas, the African Cup of Nations as well. It's like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he didn't even make the matchday squad yesterday.
No.
So he's come back. Josh isn't playing. Sarr isn't playing. This is whilst Colwell's injured, Chalobah's injured, Badiashile, is he? I don't even know what's going on with him. Hard to keep track of him in terms of his injuries. And Josh and Sarr's not even getting in the squad. Tosin's in the squad, and Josh is getting sort of right back minutes here and there. He's not even starting against Port Vale. He's coming on with 5 minutes left. And then when you look at it, it's like Chelsea wanted to bring in a centre-back in January. At that point in time, Chelsea's weakest centre-back was probably Tosin. I think everyone could agree. Tosin, it's mid-April. Tosin is getting in matchday squads over the guy they recalled. And it just, like, what's the process?
Yeah, what's the process? And it leaves you very worried in the summer. Like, I am petrified that we're going to have an exit of Chalobah or Achiampong, and I don't want to be too much of like a Cobhamite and obsessed with that, but I think the values from Cobham are something that I hold really dearly. You look at someone like Trevor Chalobah, he's by far our most played centre back, and he's by far our most consistent centre back. Yes, he has some off games. He's not a starting Premier League title winning centre back in my eyes, but my word is he is a squad player for a Premier League winning team in my eyes. Absolutely no question of doubt. And the fact I just like the concept of one of those two going. If Josh Achipong gets a good loan, absolutely fine, fully in favour of that. I don't want it to happen. I want him to really integrate himself towards the squad, but I absolutely get that. But it's the thing for me is like Tosin's position is kind of like third or fourth reserve right now, whereas he should be the fifth or sixth or however centre backs he has. He should be the last option behind the thing, and he should have the Tosin should be our Scott Carson. Tosin should be play if all centre backs are out, be a leader, be Cole Palmer's best mate, and just like offer some wisdom as Uncle Tosin kind of thing. That should be his role, but it's not his role, and he's in fact actually stopping the opportunities towards a ridiculously talented 20, 21-year-old Sarr. Josh Achimang, I think, 19, if I'm not corrected. And I think the potential of those two is so much higher than Tosin will ever achieve. I mean, Tosin's 28 now. He's the only person in the Chelsea squad that's older than me, the oldest in the squad. It's like, I just don't understand what we're doing here, and it makes me worried for the summer. But yeah, it's tough.
The thing with Tosin is I think he will probably leave because I think he isn't playing much and he'll want to go somewhere, and we got him for free, so it will be good for the books and all that stuff. But I think the reason why he plays quite a bit is because he's probably the best in the air that we have outside of maybe Fofana. So that's why he plays. And I think it's a trust thing. I think it's also like you'd rather he made a mistake than Josh made a mistake, because you'd worry what that would do for Josh. And I think that's why I'm playing like devil's advocate here. I agree with what you're saying, but like just to try and make sense of why Tosin is in these scenarios is like, if in that situation Chelsea are winning 1-0 and we have to defend against Man United, I think maybe it's like Rosenior can throw Tosin on as someone who will win headers in the box. Whereas you look at Sarr, we saw against Arsenal at the Emirates, Sarr doesn't really he's still pretty inconsistent with when he contests aerials, and Arsenal scored their winner from it. He allowed Timber, who's much shorter than him, to win that header for that goal.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I think there will be 2 to 3 centre backs leaving. I'm also a Chalobah fan. I'm aware he's a bit divisive. I think having someone like him who has experience of winning trophies, that knows the club very well, that is pretty consistent performer. Again, that's subjective. I think he's been pretty good this season. Other people will disagree. That's willing to be that. Like, that Trevor Chalobah is willing to not be a starting centre-back at Chelsea because he's jumped through so many hoops in the last 3 years to stay at the club. He has refused to leave despite them trying to push him out, sending him on loan to Palace, all of these things. So having someone like that who's willing to be that and play that role is really important. But it's going to be a crunch summer for Chelsea at centre back, and it's going to be interesting to see whether they bring in a Van Hecke or a Murillo or a Lacroix, or they go to somewhere in Europe, and what will that do, and who will leave. So
it's really interesting to see what happens. Obviously, a lot of Chelsea fans haven't been happy over the last couple of seasons with the recruitment, with the squad building, with everything like that. And that was shown by, before the game, I think it's very important that we talk about the protest that
Yeah.
happened. Obviously, the previous protests, I can't remember exactly when it was, but 3-4 months ago, there was one protest. I think even the people that organised it would agree it was pretty tragic and somewhat of a failure. I think there was 150. Oh, I went and there was about 150 people there. There was chants that were just so unrelated to anything. Tottenham chants, Willian chants. I think there was some chants about Iron Robin or Salomon Kalou, like just like completely bizarre, and it was an absolute failure, and it was quite embarrassing. So they set up a new one. And we were told that a lot of Strasbourg fans were going to be flying over, obviously, to kind of protest against the multi-club ownership, and there were going to no chance about anything other than Blue Co out, about everything to do with that. And even chants, which I thought was fantastic, even chants about Roman Abramovich were silenced immediately, which is really good because I think it's important. I think they're also very foolish chants to do on a Blue Co out protest. I did go just to see how it was, and if I'm being honest, I was thoroughly impressed in context of what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be the same thing again, but it was a really good march. I think there was about 400 to 500 people there, but in a unit walking together towards Stamford Bridge, it was really impressive. Do I think it will do anything in particular? No, but it is just so important to have that kind of community feel pushing the same message, and they will be aware of it, won't they?
Yeah, I think protests are an interesting discussion because a lot of people make the argument that they're never going to sell, which I kind of agree with. I don't think they're going to sell, but I think my view on it is I think it's important to have an impactful message. I think Blue Coat Out is a very impactful, relatively aggressive message.
Yeah.
I think it's important to have that. And I think this last sort of few weeks couldn't have gone worse for the ownership. The one thing they would have wanted is that protest to not go well, and it has. And we lost the game, and we got crashed out of the UCL last week. We got beat 3-0 by Man City. We got Brighton tomorrow. If we lose at Wembley against Leeds, it's creating. They're getting backed into a corner.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the protest is an important pillar in that. And it's that apart from some weird signs, there was some mentions of a certain New York financier on a sign that weren't really relevant. But I missed the game. I was ill, so I didn't go. I would have checked out the protest if I did, but I was impressed from what I saw on videos. It seemed more organized. It seemed more directed. It seemed like the message was clearer. So yeah, and I think I think it is also important for people to understand that there is still a spectrum there. You can't be Blue Co out, Blue Co in. I think there's a lot more people that skew a lot more towards Blue Co out than I do, but I think where that comes from is that I don't think they're going to sell the club, and I think that the grass isn't always greener, which sounds like a really bad thing to say.
I agree.
You don't know who's going to buy the club.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I look at that list of people, those potential buyers that we had in 2022, and like some of the other ones aren't, like Ratcliffe and all of these other dudes. So I think it is important for these protests to happen, because even if the message is Blue Co out, it's putting pressure on people to change stuff.
Yeah,
and
agreed.
A lot of people say this stuff is lip service, but there's been a lot of stuff coming out about them changing the strategy, going for Premier League proven players, all of these things. And whether people think that's PR or not, or that we've heard it a million times, they're clearly seeing and reacting to this stuff.
Yeah.
And what's happened over the last 4 weeks, it's been the last month couldn't have gone any worse for them, including that protest being as good as it was. So let's see how they react over the coming weeks and months, because it seems like I'm of the opinion that Chelsea season, we'll get into it, I'm of the opinion that Chelsea season is essentially over. I think even if we get to the FA Cup final, I think we're not beating Man City, but let's see how they react to it over the next few weeks and months, because it's been pretty big for them that it's the last few weeks.
Absolutely, yeah. I think I think weirdly, and I don't want Chelsea to lose games, but the way the last month has gone has been good in that aspect. On top of the protest, because if you're losing games and there's a successful protest, it's all on them, and I think that has been really good for it. Obviously, we are paying Brighton tomorrow. So yeah, if we lose that, then everything's kind of over. We are 7 points off fifth place Liverpool, which is really worrying. Champions League looks like it's completely gone for us. But obviously, if Aston Villa come fifth and win the Europa League, then I believe sixth place will go to Champions League. So we are all going to be Villa fans. It very much looks like. But at the same time, we have 48 points. And 10th place Everton have 47 points. So the group below us is getting very scary, to the point where almost the Liverpool win yesterday was actually beneficial for us. Obviously, we have Brighton on Tuesday evening. This podcast, by the way, just for reference, the aim is for episodes after every game. It's not going to be on a certain day. It's not going to be weekly or 2 a week or 1 every fortnight. The aim will be 1 after every game, where we'll talk about the game, and then occasionally we might have some preview episodes with some guests on from other clubs, perhaps. But I think we've covered pretty much everything, and I think that has been a very enjoyable first episode. Tom, do you have anything to say to wrap us up?
I mean, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how we play against Brighton, what will happen in the coming weeks, how the pressure ramps up. But yeah, it's finally good to get this off the ground, I think. We've been talking about this for a few weeks. I'm really appreciative of the reaction that everyone's had to it. And I hope this continues and evolves. We're hoping that it will evolve. Obviously, the summer will be really interesting for things to talk about. It'll be a lot different to this sort of match reaction format. But yeah, it's been exciting, been fun to get started.
Absolutely. So if you could drop a like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, that would mean the world. Also, please comment any feedback you have on the podcast, any thoughts about what we've said on the podcast, thoughts about Chelsea at the moment. We really want to build this as kind of a community where we just have a place to talk about Chelsea more in the long form. Obviously, we both create TikToks, Reels on Instagram, all that, very short form, but we want to use this as a platform where we can talk to you guys in more length and actually just say fully what's on our chest and hear what you guys have to say in the comment section as well. So that would be fantastic. On Spotify and on Apple platform, please drop us 5 stars. It genuinely helps so much and pushes the podcast up. We want to make this as big as possible, and we can only do that with your help. But thank you very much for listening, and yeah, we'll see you next time after the Brighton game.